The Diablo 4 Season 9 Campfire Chat just happened, and for most of the Barbarians out there, it did not seem like a really great day. Now, the question is, does that even really matter? We're going to talk about that, because I'm going to be playing the Barbarian as soon as the season launches, and we'll cover exactly why, and why you shouldn't really be scared to hop onto the Barbarian. We're over here on the unofficial leaderboard for Diablo 4 for pit pushing. This is helltides.com. If you haven't ever seen this before, I'll have the link in the description of the video. This is privately run, it has nothing to do with Blizzard, but is just a way for players to see where they rank amongst other players that are able to submit their clear runs. If your name has never been on this list, then all of the numbers and all of the nerfs that we're about to cover are really not going to affect you. So let's talk about the nerfs, what happened, and then why it really isn't going to affect most of the players out there. We'll start this off by saying that I would absolutely love to see them just bring other builds up to the same level that all of the builds were at this season. They all felt really good, and they were in a really good spot. So bringing up all those other builds would definitely have been a really great way to go into Season 9 with the Barbarian, but that's not what we have, so we're going to have to work with what we got. So for the first couple changes didn't really read too bad. They're going to increase the vulnerable proc from Frenzy. This was actually a really big one and a really small win in the grand scheme of things. Wrath of the Berserker used to interrupt movement, it used to cancel your animations, and it used to interrupt channeling, making it the pure Whirlwind build almost impossible to run with the new aspects because you would stop channeling because you had to cast Wrath of Berserker. That has been changed. So a nice small win. Now exploding into a rage, knocking down surrounding enemies, and gaining Berserking and Unstoppable for 10 seconds. It's actually really long duration to be unstoppable. So this is going to be a really big buff for Wrath of Berserker itself, not in terms of damage-wise, but just more of quality of life. Heavy Hitter has been reduced from 15% to 10%. This is the one that was giving all of the Earthquakes and Summoning and Dust Devil damage. The Cleave from the Hooves of the Mountain God, that was the new unique that's being added in. It's a pair of boots. This pair of boots is probably going to be the staple in most of the Barbarian builds this season, but we'll talk about that in just a little while. The Ugly Bastard Helmet, this was the strongest Barbarian helmet out there. It is now going to be on par with the Air of Perdition in terms of the damage increase that you're getting. Ariad's Bearings, the Dust Devil damage, which I'm not sure why we're reducing Dust Devil damage, was reduced by 50%. Unbroken Chains, this one got a small buff. They gave you strength instead of movement speed. Executioner Aspect, they took it from 200% down to 100%. And then for your tempering, the Vehement Augment for your weapon tempering recipe, Heavy Hitter was replaced with Wallop. The Wallop, you have to use a bludgeoning weapon, and then you gain 5% per rank. That is now going to be replacing Heavy Hitter. That is where a huge source of our damage came from with the Summoning builds, with the Earthquake builds, and the Dust Devil builds. Rumble Glyph, this one, the bonus per strength was 35.1%. It is now 30.1%. So those are all of the nerfs. Now, on top of that, they did also take away the final bit of scaling from Life and Fortify to Overpower. So Overpower now is just going to be just like Critical Strike chance is. So if we were to look in the game, and you would go over to your Critical Strike chance, this is just a straight 50x. At 1,632%, that's just additive damage. The only multiplier that you gain from Critical Strike is that 1.5. That is what is going to happen with Overpower now. If you look at Overpower, the way that this works is that it's going to give you that 1.5, but then it also gives you a multiplier on top of that based on your Life and Fortify. They are completely removing that multiplier, and it's just going to be a standard 1.5% increase multiplier. So does that mean that Overpower is dead? Absolutely not. It's still going to be another multiplier. You just won't see quite the big difference between your Critical Strike hits and your Overpower hits. You're still going to want to use Overpower because it's still going to be just an extra multiplier. Maybe it won't be quite as big as something else, so we may see a little bit less of Overpower. They did do this little bit, which they didn't cover in the Campfire Chat. Monsters' health increase per pit tier after Torment 1 has been slightly reduced to ensure a wider range of builds succeed in their journey to Torment 4. Now, that is a really good thing. Even if it's slightly, they mean 1 or 2%, that's still a whole lot of pit tiers that you're going to see that reduction. It's a 17% increase right now in monsters' health per tier. That is a lot of life. So now if they drop that down even to 15%, that still adds up to a whole lot, and you're going to see a whole lot more builds make it into Torment 4. Now, we talked about why it's not going to really matter too much for most of you that all of these nerfs happened, because there were a lot of things that were left unchanged. The only thing that these really impacted were going to be the Summoning and the Earthquake builds. Yes, those were the top pit pushing builds coming out of the PTR, so those are gone. We will find something. Barb always finds a way. There will be more that's going to be coming out. I want to show you one of the builds that I'm really excited to play still. Even with the nerfs to overpower, they made a slight change where they upgraded the way that Pain Gorders interacts. Pain Gorders right now was only just doing normal damage and it wasn't echoing anything. It can now critically hit and it can overpower. That's going to add a huge radius of new increased damage that we're going to be able to use. We're going to do a couple different things and a couple different builds, and we're just going to highlight them right now. I'm not going to go over the entire builds. I'll have build guides coming out for them. The planners will be in the description of the video, though. We're going to be looking at Frenzy. Frenzy is going to be able to take advantage of two different things. We're going to be able to take advantage of the Ramaladi's Magnum Opus, the Ramalama Ding Dong here. This is going to give you gigantic multipliers. Now, if you look in the game here, this character here is going to be set up very similar. If we were to pop one of these elixirs here, that's going to give us more resources, because now we don't have to worry about life as a scaling for our damage. We're going to see 367 maximum Fury. Now that maximum Fury is going to be cut in basically half, and that is our multiplier. So now we're looking at adding a 2.8x to all of our damage just by putting on the Ramalades. Now you pair that with the Shard of Rathiel, that's another 2.5 as well. So now we're really starting to add things up. And we're going to start spending Fury here. That's why we want to make sure that we have a lot of Fury generation with this build. And then you start pairing that with things like the new Hooves of the Mountain God. And then you throw the Pain Quarters on, and now we're getting all of this extra damage. The new adaptability aspect is going to be really, really strong. So we're going to get to kind of see how this plays out. But I did get to test this out on the PTR, and it was actually incredibly fun to see. Frenzy attacks very, very quickly. Now, I only had the overpowered damage numbers on this because I want to see what the new scaling looked like. That's still going to change. We're still going to have the overpower going. But the build itself, this was in a Pit 80, and Pit 80 in the current season is much harder than what it sounds like it's going to be on the new season when it goes live. This was not with perfect masterworking gear. I didn't even spend the time on the PTR because I was working during it to get perfect gear. I had basically single GA gear, I couldn't enchant anything correctly, and I couldn't really masterwork all of it. So this build has the potential, and I know that there was a clear on the PTR of Pit 90. We're going to lose some of the overpowered damage, but this build will probably still be able to get closer to 90, maybe 95, depending on how it's going to be working now. If we can get some really fast clears adding Pain Gorders for a whole bunch of extra AoE damage, this might be something that's going to be pretty viable. And Pit 90, honestly, is going to be a great spot to get all your glyphs leveled up, and that is way higher than anything that's going to be needed in Torment 4. Now, if you're like me, I'm not a huge pit pusher. I've never been on the leaderboards. I do a pit run, I get to the highest that I can go with a build, and then I move on to the next build because I have fun doing that. If you've never been on the leaderboards, then any build that will get you into Torment 4 and can start killing bosses, and that can start farming gear and farming materials for you is going to be a build that is perfectly fine and perfectly viable. This one is a throwback to Season 4, and I'm super excited to get it out there. I made a dual-wield bash build that season, and it was absolutely so much fun to play. We're going to be bringing it back in this season. Now, it's definitely subject to change with how the gear is set up once we get in and start testing everything out. But it's going to also be running on the Ramaladi's Magnum Opus. We actually have to run a mace with this, so that will allow us to put Wallop on here. After this gets updated, we're going to be able to add the temper for Wallop onto this, so all of these planners will be up to date. Bash was actually very fun to play. It wasn't quite as strong as Frenzy, but I have a feeling when we get into the game, we actually get to start testing things out. We're going to have a lot of fun with the way that this build rolls. There are going to be two different versions of this. This is your dual wield version here. This one can't rely on Hammer of the Ancients to give you that 1.4 multiplier. However, it does run on Ramalades. So you either are going to run a dual wield and not have Ramalades, or you're going to run the two-handed version of it and you have your Hammer of the Ancients, what's going to give you that extra damage multiplier on top of it. So two very fun builds that are going to be able to fly through Torment 4. They're going to smash bosses. So the Barbarian is not in as bad of a spot as you think it's going to be, unless you're talking about the highest ends of the pits. If that's what your goal is, then maybe the Barbarian isn't for you this season. But in terms of every other piece of content in the game, the Barbarian will still be perfectly fine. Flay will be a lot of fun to play, and we'll be doing a build on that very soon. We're also going to be doing Mighty Throw. Hammer of the Ancients might actually make a comeback as well, so just stick around for the Barbarian content because it's going to be coming. And I promise you, it's not going to be as bad as you think it's going to be. The season goes live July 1st. We're going to be doing some launch day events. The event is going to be a community race. You can either race to Tournament 1 or to Tournament 4. It's going to be teams of 4. The signups are in Discord. Immortalize and I are the ones that are putting this on. You can hop into either one of our Discords. We would love to have you there. There are some pretty big prizes on the line, and the best part about it is completely free. The first place team is going to get a t-shirt from Mobalytics because Mobalytics is sponsoring the race. We're going to have a $50 Battle.net credit and a Battle Pass. Second place teams will get $20 Battle.net credit and a Battle Pass. And then the third and fourth place teams will also get Battle Passes, and that is every single person in the whole party. Now, when you are doing this, you're going to have to register in Discord for whichever tournament tier you want. If you're a content creator out there, we would love to collab with you. We're going to get a list of all of the content creators that are in the race, and we're going to publish that. Now, you don't have to be a content creator to race. All you're going to need is a team of 4, a clip of the boss kill when you do it, with all 4 of your party members in the boss room, showing your seasonal power so that we know that it was done this season, and then post that clip in Discord and then win some prizes. Hopefully, I will see you there. I'll be on a Barbarian starting off on my Flame Quake build because it's still going to be the strongest leveling Barbarian out there. Make sure you stop by the stream, say hi. Would love to hear from you and how the start of your Season 9 is going. If you found this video helpful for all the Barbarians out there, make sure you share it with your friends. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm live every night. I'd love it if you stopped by, said hi, theory crafted with me. Catch you on the clip side.